But this mistake, this can really kind of prevent you from.
네, 여러분 안녕하세요. 제가 지난 5월 달에 지금 화면에 보이시는 Grant하고 콜라보를 해본 적이 있는데요. 오늘 영상의 주제는 한국 학생들이 가장 많이 하는 실수들입니다. Grant 같은 경우 한국에서 실제로 한국 학생들을 가르쳐본 경험이 있으니까 우선 Grant 얘기부터 한번 들어볼게요. So, hi Grant.
Hey, I understood maybe 5% of what you just said. You kept saying 한국 학생, Korean students, so I caught a little bit.
That's pretty impressive. So you actually used to teach in Korea, right? So could you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, sure. So I taught at a kids after school hagwon in Songnam for a year. And then I moved and taught at an after school at a one-on-one business English program for adults. I taught in Gangnam for a year and a half. And I absolutely loved living in Korea. I think it's an awesome country. And I really enjoy working with Korean students. And so now I have my YouTube channel and I still teach a lot of Korean students, but instead of face-to-face, we teach via Skype.
So could you share with us some of the most common mistakes that Korean students make that you've seen over the past couple of years?
Yeah, sure. So I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of Korean students. Something I've heard a lot of people say is they use the word condition to describe how they feel. Like if someone is sick, they might say like, "Oh, I have bad condition," or if they're asking how you feel, they'll say, "Oh, how is your condition?" This is a kind of Konglish. Usually native speakers, we don't use the word condition to describe us. It's usually used to describe items. For example, I've owned this car for 15 years, but it's still in good condition.
Yeah, we usually say stuff like selling iPhone 10 which is in mint condition and stuff, right?
That would be natural, but for a human, usually we would just say I feel good or I feel bad.
Yeah, some expressions that native speaker would say if they're not feeling well, I'm a little bit under the weather, or
Yeah, you can say that.
Or like I'm not feeling that well, or I'm not feeling so good. But what do you think a native speaker would think if an ESL student said, I have bad condition? Would they at least be able to understand what they're trying to say?
Yes, they probably would understand what they're trying to say.
Anything else?
Yes. So the next one, I still, to this day, hear this all the time. It is the difference between fun and funny. So these are actually not the same thing. The difference is fun is a little bit more general. The adjective fun, that is for anything that you enjoy and are interested in. So you can say games, movies, people, situations, all of these things can be fun. But funny is only really for jokes and comedy and things that make you laugh. I'll hear students say like, my favorite sport is soccer because soccer is funny. No, the correct word there would be fun. Funny is usually only for jokes and comedy.
I just thought of this sentence. Hear me out. Usually, Todd Phillips movies are funny, but Joker was fun in another way.
Yeah, movies can definitely be funny, but if it's a movie that you just enjoy and are interested in, you probably wouldn't say it's funny. You would say it's fun or it's interesting.
Anything else?
Yeah, so the next one, this is important. So the first two tips, they are mistakes, but they won't really change what you're trying to say. But this mistake, this can really kind of prevent you from effectively communicating with a native speaker. And that is the difference in pronunciation between the L sound and the R sound. So what I try to tell students is to think about the position of your mouth when you make the sounds. So I'll get a little bit closer to my camera. So when you make the L sound, the tip of your tongue will actually touch the back of your top teeth. Lick or live. When you make the R sound, like run, there are two things there. The corners of your mouth will actually come together, run, so your mouth kind of forms a circle, and your tongue should not touch your teeth.
Right.
So
yes, I just tried that, and what you're saying is perfectly true.
A good way to practice this is with words where the only difference is the L and R sound. For example, lead and red. So notice the difference in my mouth position when I say lead and red. For a lot of Korean students, if they were to say those words, they would sound the exact same to a native speaker. So I think differentiating those sounds in your pronunciation is really important.
Thanks for the tip. So two words that comes to my mind when I think about the L and the R. So how would you say the opposite of urban?
Oh, that is a hard one. So the word he's talking about is rural. Notice how my tongue doesn't touch my teeth on the R sounds. Rural. But at the end, when I make that final L sound, my tongue will touch the back of my top teeth. Rural.
Okay, so is there anything else?
This is another one that's related to the Korean language. A lot of times, Korean students will add extra syllables to words. A perfect example is my name. So Grant, in English, that is one syllable, Grant. But Koreans will say like Grant. I know that's because the way Hangul is structured. I think a good way to practice this is to kind of break down the sound of a word. For my name, Grant, start by just trying to make that grr sound at the beginning with no in between. So grr, not goo. So grr, and then just kind of add more letters. Grant. Another hard one is ST. Maybe the word story. You might hear like story.
Yeah.
So practice that st sound without the extra vowel in between, if that makes sense.
I think that makes total sense. And have you heard of a person say like 개그맨? Have you heard gagman before?
I'm going to be honest. I actually have no idea what you're trying to say.
Oh, okay. Because in Korea we call comedians 개그맨, and then
okay, I got you. You're saying gag man.
Yes, gagman.
Okay.
Yeah. I think those are kind of those words that hinder like your communication with foreigners, because the foreigner will try to understand what you're saying, like gagman, what's that? But then and then the Korean person will be frustrated and trying to explain, like trying to improve their pronunciation and saying like gagman, you don't know gagman, and then like suddenly their conversation will like drift apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the Korean students watching, something you should know is that, you know, your difficulties with pronouncing English, that's no different than anyone else learning a new language. When I was learning some Korean, a lot of your sounds were very difficult for me. During my first or second week working at a kids after school academy, there was a student named Sang-eun, and I could not figure out how to say her name correctly. I would say like Sang-eun or Sang-eun, And they were all like, no, that's totally wrong. It's sang. To me, I wasn't understanding the difference. If you make a lot of pronunciation errors or have problems pronouncing certain English words, you're not alone. Basically, everyone feels that way when they're learning a new language with new sounds.
Well, thanks, Grant, for the wonderful tips. Do you have any final words for my viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. If your goal is to have perfect grammar and perfect classroom English, then study grammar and learn English in the classroom. But if your goal is to communicate with native speakers, you need to practice listening to and communicating with native speakers. So study in a way that moves you towards your goal. Like Leo said, if you really want to communicate and understand native speakers, you should practice listening to true unscripted English, like Jimmy Fallon, James Corden, Jimmy Kimmel, Ellen DeGeneres. There are tons of live talk shows that are a much better representation of actual English conversations than what you would get in an ESL classroom, or even what you get in TV shows, because those are scripted. And once you reach a point where you can, for the most part, understand what people are saying, and you can even repeat what they say and have simple English conversations, I really, really encourage students to actually speak, to get out there, to meet people in your community. If there are English lessons available, if there are meetups and language exchanges, get out and meet people and try to actually practice communicating in English. And if you live in a small town and there aren't those opportunities, that's totally fine. There are tons of websites like Preply and italki where they have English tutors that you can work with in your home, which is perfect if you're a little bit shy, or like I said, if you can't find actual people to work with in your town.
네, 그렇게 해서 그랜트를 통해서 한국 학생들이 많이 하는 실수들 몇 가지를 체크했는데요. 도움 많이 되셨나요? 저와 그랜트가 또 다른 영상 하나를 찍어서 그거는 그랜트 채널에 올려 있고 여기 아래 댓글에 제가 링크하도록 하겠습니다. Alright, so Grant, what time is it there?
It is 9:48 p.m. on Sunday.
Oh, okay. And where are you exactly?
I live in Kansas.
Kansas.
It's in the very middle of the U.S. and it's a pretty boring, uninteresting state, so not a lot of people have heard of it.
Actually, Koreans will be very familiar with Kansas City Royals because there's
Yeah. Kansas City Royals baseball.
And also Dorothy, right?
Yes, the Wizard of Oz. Yes, pretty much everyone who knows about Kansas, they either know the Royals or the Wizard of Oz.
That's the two things that I know. Well, thanks, Grant.
Yeah, no problem, man. And thanks for letting me on the channel.
Bye-bye.
Later.